Welcome to those of you who have joined us for our second Young Carers in Schools webinar session, which will focus on the subject of listening to young carers. My name is Jess Hill and I'm the Schools Policy and Development Officer here at Carers Trust, and I'm delighted that you're joining me today, so thank you for giving up your time. What does this webinar aim to achieve? The Young Carers in Schools Award contains 5 standards: understand, identify, listen, support and inform. This webinar focuses specifically on the bronze level criteria of the Listen standard, which sets out the first things we recommend that schools do to ensure young carers are listened to and consulted with. In doing so, it aims to put this criteria into context, explore what the criteria looks like in practice, enable you to identify the extent to which your school may already meet their criteria, provide key information to make it as easy as possible for you to fill in any gaps, and ensure clarity about the evidence you need to include in your Young Carers in Schools application, making a Young Carers in Schools award as simple as possible to achieve. So for those of you who joined me for the first webinar, I explained how vital it is to explore the context of these webinars and to not see them in isolation. Again, it's the same for this one. It's to see them as part of a series of steps schools can take to adopt a whole school approach to identifying and supporting young carers. Working towards and embedding this whole school approach is essential for raising outcomes for this vulnerable pupil group. One of the main reasons young carers say they do not access support is because of stigma. A positive whole school ethos where young carers and their families are respected and valued by pupils, staff and the wider school community is crucial to ensuring young carers and their families feel safe and confident to access support. Again, some of you may be well on the way to implementing this whole school approach and are looking for clarification through this webinar about how best to demonstrate this to gain recognition through the Young Carers in Schools Award. Others may just be starting out on the journey, looking to build activities over a number of years. The Young Carers in Schools programme aims to support you on this journey. The award structure breaks down the development of a whole school approach into manageable incremental steps to help you identify and prioritise what to do next. In doing so, we draw upon a wide range of research and extensive consultation with school staff, young carers and young carers services. So during the session today, we'll be looking at why young carers need to be listened to and given space to talk if necessary, and the initial steps schools can take to put this into place. At bronze level, the criteria aims to get schools to do 3 things. Firstly, ensuring the young carer has a trusted member of staff they can talk to, which is covered in the essential evidence. Secondly, ensure schools has a conversation with a young carer to identify what forms of support would be beneficial to them. This is covered in the desirable evidence. And thirdly, to start consulting with young carers about the school's policy and provision for young carers. This is also covered in the desirable evidence. Looking at ensuring the young person has a trusted member of staff they can talk to first is important because the number one thing young carers say they would like from school is someone who recognises them as a young carer and who is available to talk to. Not all young carers will feel comfortable with sharing information about their caring role to all members of staff. It is important that the young carer lead is available for young carers to talk to so that any issues a young carer may have can be shared confidentially with someone they feel comfortable with and they can be addressed quickly. So having an open door policy ensures that young carers know and feel that they can communicate with you on a daily basis if necessary. It will help to encourage open communication and feedback. A young carer may need to speak to a member of staff on an ad hoc basis because things can change quickly and unexpectedly at home. Something may have happened during the night or in the morning which they need to tell someone about, or perhaps everything was okay when they left for school, but by lunchtime things have changed and they're now worried. This session and the guidance in the step-by-step guide will help to make implementing an open door policy really simple. A key action you can do straight away is to let young carers know where they can find the lead. So especially if the school lead is located in the same location, or if they are office-based or usually based in a regular location. This can be advertised easily on a pupil notice board. A second way to have an open door policy, especially if you're not office-based, is to set up an email address, which young carers and all parents can use to contact staff. A young carer might not have a chance to see you during the school day or after school, so by having this in place, it allows young carers to share with you when they might be facing some difficulties. We appreciate that setting up this email address is probably more applicable to secondary schools. Another way to enable young carers to communicate with staff is to have a message box in place. Both primary and secondary schools can have a message box, which young carers can use to drop in a message which staff can then follow up. These need to be put in places where they're accessible to pupils, and in a large school, there will need to be more than one. A young carer might like to use this to ask staff about services and support available, perhaps in private, or as a way to leave a message with staff confidentially. Even if the school lead is office-based or in a regular location, having both the email address and the message box in place is beneficial, as a young carer may not feel comfortable talking about a sensitive issue straight away with you face-to-face, and they may prefer to drop you a note beforehand. So in addition to young carers being able to access the lead on an ad hoc basis, if an urgent matter arises, holding regular drop-in sessions ensures young carers know that there is protected time for them to speak to someone about non-urgent things. Drop-in sessions can work particularly well in a secondary school setting where staff move around and are not as accessible and or as well known as in primary schools. Some of the key things to consider when setting up drop-in sessions are to find a suitable room. The drop-in sessions need to be held in a place where young carers can talk in confidence and privately with staff. It should be in a room where young carers feel safe to share issues and you know that you're not going to be disturbed during that meeting. And also to find a suitable time. Drop-in sessions need to be held regularly so that young carers continue to feel supported. We recommend that they should be held at least fortnightly. It is important to remember that young carers may find it difficult to attend sessions after school. It is important that both drop-in sessions and or the email system or the message box are in place. This is vital in case a young carer needs urgent advice. What would happen if a young carer needed to talk to someone but the next drop-in session wasn't for another 2 days or perhaps a week? Having these in place ensures young carers have a way to access support between sessions. It is important they can speak to someone as and when things may be happening or changing at home. As we've previously touched upon, it is important to note that not all young carers will need or want the different types of support your school may have on offer. Some might not need any or want to engage in any support at this specific moment in time. For example, not all young carers in your school may want to attend a drop-in session, but they may benefit from and use the email address to contact you instead. It is therefore important to have multiple ways in which young carers can share what is going on at home and be able to feed back what types of support they may benefit from the most. It is important that the key information about the drop-in sessions, the email address and the message boxes and how young carers can use them are promoted in school. This information could easily be shared via a pupil notice board. It is also important that information about where young carers can find the school lead is also promoted and shared on the pupil notice board. In our last webinar session, we started to discuss the importance of having a notice board, especially in secondary schools. So just to quickly recap, notice boards are great because they can be updated regularly, are seen by a large number of pupils, and are an easy, constant way of sharing information quickly. A young person can become a young carer at any time, so the information needs to be available all the time. The notice board should be in a prominent place in the school where the majority of pupils will see it. So, for example, the library, the canteen, or perhaps school reception. So I've talked a lot at you. Let's just quickly recap. So at bronze level, the actions schools need to have in place are a message box and or email address to be implemented and promoted on the pupil notice board. In secondary schools and large primary schools, to implement a drop-in session. And for all of these details to be promoted alongside the location of the young carer lead if they are based in a regular office or location. So at a bronze level, schools should be having conversations with young carers to identify what forms of support would be most beneficial to that particular pupil. This is included in the desirable evidence as we want the focus to be on having those conversations with young carers rather than you feeling like you have to gather a lot of evidence and gather a lot of paperwork. It's important to remember that not all young carers will benefit from or want the same types of support. As we all know, each child is different. It is therefore important to make sure that young carers are consulted with so that they can identify what would be the most beneficial to them. It is important that young carers feel that they can talk in confidence and in a quiet, suitable space and this discussion should take place in an area that would ensure this. Schools can use their own assessments or the tools we provide in the step-by-step guide. These include the MACA form, the PANOC form, Wellbeing Questionnaire, and a staff observation checklist. All of these are questionnaires which are designed as very short and easy to use tools. The MACA and PANOC are both evidence-based tools developed and tested with over 500 young carers by a number of academics specialising in young carers. They have been in use by a number of young carers services since 2010, so they can be used with confidence. The MACA helps you to identify the level of caring a child is carrying out. It can be useful to use to identify whether a child is a young carer, and to use before and after interventions to examine what sort of interventions are helpful in reducing their caring burden. The PANOC is designed to give you an idea about how caring is impacting on a young carer and can help you identify what support may be needed. The Wellbeing Questionnaire and Observation Checklist have been developed by Carers Trust to encourage young carers to think about and share their feelings regarding their own well-being and towards school. In secondary schools, the MACA, PANOC and Wellbeing Questionnaire are suitable for the young carer to fill in themselves. For younger children in primary school, it may be more appropriate for a member of staff to ask the young carer the questions. It is important that the observation checklist is used alongside the Wellbeing Questionnaire because it helps to provide a bigger picture of the young carer's well-being and to better inform the types of support they may need. I'm not stipulating that schools have to use the MACA, PANOC and Wellbeing Questionnaire, but they are tried and tested tools which are there to help make consulting with young carers as easy as possible. Using young carers' views is vital to ensuring the school meets the needs of this vulnerable pupil group effectively. It will also demonstrate that the school value young carers' opinions and helps to reinforce and build that positive whole school ethos. That is why at Silver level, we have included criteria about demonstrating that schools have gathered young carers' views and used these to develop school policy and practice. Beginning to ask young carers for their opinions as part of the Bronze level, by using the desirable evidence, is the first step in doing this and will help make progression to Silver easier. Some of the ways that you can begin consulting with young carers are by using questionnaires or surveys, by having conversations with young carers at the drop-in sessions, or by setting up a young carer forum. Questionnaires and surveys are best used to quantitatively evaluate the effectiveness of your school's provision and what young carers feel are still issues that need to be addressed. These can work well when measuring the impact the school has had, but are not always the best methods when trying to address new issues. They are a quick and easy way, but there are some drawbacks for using them. So, for example, you may experience a lower intake of young carers completing them, as well as young carers feeling that they may not be able to address issues they're having if they're not covered or asked about on the questionnaire. Drop-in sessions are much more effective as it offers a chance for young carers to talk to you individually, face-to-face, and can ensure that they can easily share with you any new issues which may have arisen at school. To gather their views, the school lead will find it useful to ask young carers, do you feel you get the information and support you need from school as a young carer? What is the school doing well to raise awareness in the school about young carers? What would you like the school to do to raise awareness in the school about young carers? What would you like the school to do to raise awareness in a better way? What is the school doing well to support young carers? What would you like the school to do to support young carers better? And any other comments you may wish to ask. It's also really important to explain why you're gathering the information, how you're going to deal with anything raised, and how you're going to feed back to the young carer. So I mentioned about setting up a young carers forum. A young carers forum in your school brings together all or a representative sample of the young carers identified in your school on a regular basis to influence and develop the school's provision for young carers. Setting up and running regular meetings of a young carers forum creates the opportunity for schools to gather young carers input as you develop the school's provision. By gaining young carers input on how to make things such as the people noticeable more engaging or asking them about the kinds of support they feel they would benefit from will help to ensure the support available is relevant to young carers. You could start setting this up by advertising the forum to pupils, either via the school notice board or verbally, perhaps showing drop-in sessions or speaking to young carers one-to-one. Similar to the drop-in sessions, key things to consider when setting up the Young Carers Forum are finding a suitable room where young carers feel able to discuss issues and policies in confidence, finding a suitable time to hold the Young Carers Forum, and again it's important to remember that not all young carers are able to stay behind after school. The forum should be held regularly enough to deal with any issues that come up, but not so regularly that there is nothing to discuss during sessions. Once every half term might be a good place to start, and then you can adjust accordingly depending on how needed the meetings are. I must stress it's not a Bronze Award requirement to set up a Young Carers Forum, but we just wanted to highlight another way in which you can start looking at gathering feedback from young carers. I'll be going into more detail about running a Young Carers Forum in the Silver series of the webinars, which are happening in the spring term, but you can find further guidance in Step 4, Tool 3, and Step 6, Tool 4 of the Step-by-Step guide. So, how do I evidence this for the award? At bronze level, evidence for this standard is, again, really easy. The essential pieces of evidence you need to provide us with are a timetable of drop-in sessions, which show that they are held at available times for young carers to attend. This is easily evidenced by including a copy or a photo of the poster which advertises the sessions. If you're from a smaller primary school where the staff member who is the young carer lead is well known and easily accessible throughout the school day, a drop-in session may not be required. It is important that the young carer lead and support available is advertised via assemblies or verbally to pupils or on a notice board. In this instance, the desirable evidence would be that feedback for young carers shows the young carer lead is accessible whenever needed. Another essential piece of evidence you need to provide us with is evidence that a system is in place for young carers to use to communicate with staff. This again is easily evidenced by sharing with us a photo of your message boxes and where they are placed around the school, or demonstrating that the young carer email address is being advertised by sending a copy of a poster or another system you have in place. And if you've begun gathering feedback from young carers about their views on the school's provision, you can share this easily with us by sharing completed and anonymised macro and panic forms, wellbeing questionnaires or other questionnaires they may have completed. Or you could include in your application an advert for the Young Carer Forum or notes from the first Young Carer Forum meeting. If you would like to include any of these in your Bronze Award application, they must be anonymised. So again, I've talked at you quite a lot and quite quickly. I apologise. Thank you for sticking with me. So just to summarise, at bronze level, the essential actions schools need to have in place are a message box and or email address to be implemented and promoted on the pupil notice board. In secondary schools and large primary schools, to implement the drop-in session. And for all of these details to be promoted together with the location of the young carer lead if they're based in a regular location. It's also desirable to consult with young carers as an easy way to start thinking about progression to silver level and help ensure that the support that young carers have said would be most beneficial is actually effective. Okay, so I have a little bit of time to answer any questions that you may have. So somebody has asked, what does MACA and PANIC stand for? MACA stands for the Multi-Assessment of Caring Activities, and PANIC stands for Positive and Negative Outcomes of Caring. I hope you found this session useful and you feel confident in how you can make sure that young carers are heard within your school. Thank you so much for joining me. Just to mention, in case you haven't seen it already, we have updated our website, youngcarersinschools.com, and one of the updates includes 5 key steps that schools can take to get involved, with the first step being completing the baseline review. The baseline review enables you to quickly and easily identify what you may already have in place, to celebrate this, and then to prioritise what to do next. If you're thinking of applying for the award in October, don't worry about completing this, but if you're thinking of applying for it in December, I really encourage you to get your baseline review into us first. Thank you again so much for joining me. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.